I think it helps them to understand that language learning is more of a process. I think students, and it's a function of having to do it in other classes, sometimes tend to compartmentalize their learning. Whereas I learned this in this chapter, I have to memorize and study it for the test, and then when I start a new chapter, I don't need that information anymore, so I can forget it. But whereas we as language learners know, or language teachers I should say, know that language learning is a process and you absolutely need everything from those previous chapters, with Linguafolio students are able to understand, oh, I actually have to remember and I have to be able to integrate in order to become a more proficient learner. So I am accountable for what we learned 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, if I want to keep getting better and better and better and more proficient in the language. I think it kind of goes back to the notion of an old school type of learning, that once I take a test, I'm done with it. And I don't need to go back and I don't need to look at that material again because it's done, it's over, and I'm moving on. And if I miss something, well, too bad, I can't go back and fix that. But I think that's one of the things that's so wonderful about language learning, is that just because maybe you may have made a mistake or you may have forgotten a word on a given day when an assessment was given, whether it be written, speaking, or even in an activity, that doesn't mean in the future you still don't have to know that word. You can learn it and go back and fix it and self-correct. So I think that's one of the great things about reflective learning, is that, okay, here's where I was on a given day, and maybe I did this really well, and maybe I still had opportunities in here. So going forward with this, how is it that I can grow and get better, rather than just looking back on it and saying, well, I really missed that, I was really not focused that day, or I didn't really do my best that day, and it's over and I can't do anything about it. So by teaching them to reflect and see where their strengths are and their weaknesses are, you're teaching them to take ownership of what they have been able to do, but to also take ownership of where it is that they can still go with their learning. And so I think that's what's so great about Linguafolio, and having the dossier piece, for example, where they can go back and look at what it is that they have been able to do, but at the same time keep thinking, what is it that I can still do to make this better and make this better? And that's really how we grow as language learners.
They've set their goals. The reflective learning has helped them to set their goals, to help them realize what they want to work on, what they want to accomplish, and also to realize what they can accomplish, because sometimes I think they didn't know where they were going with this whole learning in German. They just come to school and take it for granted that they're learning in German without seeing the end goal in sight. So a lot of them are now have the bigger picture. Where can I go with this, and what can I do with it?
I was really surprised with one of the boys' comments. Like, after they went through those checklists, he said, oh, I'm better in speaking than writing. That was the first time for me to hear that kind of reflection about himself. So and then I made a comment, like, this is to the class, this is for you to know where you are standing and how you want to move on from now on. So to most of them, that was beneficial. They are not competing against each other. They want to show how they are moving along, how they are developing their skill. That's what really helped my students.
What do I know? What can I really do? And what do I need to learn to do? And how am I going to get there? I think that's part of the Linguafolio that really helps. It helps them claim learning for themselves. It also helps them stop at the end of a day or at the end of a week and say, how have I really done? Am I really using classroom time well so that I can produce language well, so that I am proficient in listening, so that I am proficient in speaking? Sometimes they do that better than others, but it's in front of them all the time. And I often say to them, this is an important exercise for you, because you will be speaking without writing. You're looking at a picture and you're telling me what's happening in that picture. This is an important step for you. And that's a reflective kind of thing. And then after, when you get done, say, how did you do? Did you give it your best shot? Oh, I think that's helped.
Reflecting learning. Now they can put themselves in one column and realize that in order to go to a higher level, they have to do certain things. They can see, they can look for activities that can improve the areas that they need to improve.
I think the Linguafolio helps students become more creative in the fact that they appreciate different activities and experiences, and they realize that they don't have to read a textbook and take a test, that, oh, I can make a music video and I can do this in the target language, and they're having fun and they're using technology and we're integrating 21st century skills, and we're still meeting the needs for their language learning. And so they get really excited and they become a lot more creative and start to think outside of the box, use a lot of higher order thinking skills, which is what we want. We don't want memorization and what I call regurgitation. We want them thinking and analyzing and assessing themselves and explaining, the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy, not the lower levels. Reflective learning has helped my students ultimately take responsibility for their own education, especially when it comes to the target language. It's important for the students to realize that the process is a journey. It's not memorization and regurgitation for a test. When it comes to language learning, it truly is a process. And with the Linguafolio, they can review and reflect on their work. And when they reflect on the things that they have done, then they can see the great things that they have accomplished, and then they can see the weaker areas of where they need to improve, and they can take that data and improve for next time, and improve in their future. And so it helps them, evolve in their learning process.